On this week's episode of the pod, we are getting loose with a star of stage and screen for many decades, a mental health advocate for many decades, and the future star of Only Nans. It's my mate, national treasure, Denise Welch.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I had a terrible night's sleep. Apparently, we had massive thunder and lightning storms last night. Wasn't aware. Did you hear them?
No.
It was the worst thunder and lightning we've ever had, apparently, in 4 million years. Didn't hear a thing.
I was a bit jet lagged though, so I was out
were you?
cold and the night before.
Right.
I can't do it, Denise. I can't do it. I'm never doing a red eye again. I can't do it.
It's
I'm
just
useless.
ridiculous. And yet my dad, before he died, we'd take him to Los Angeles with us. He was 83. And he'd come back and go, it's all in the bloody mind, this jet lag. I've been to 5 parties this week and I'm going to another one. And I am absolutely hanging for a fortnight.
I can't do it.
know.
I can't do it. Welcome.
Thank you.
My lot are this lot are jumping in first saying, the team here were asking earlier and they would like to know, how did we meet?
How did we meet?
It was Twitter.
It was
And
Twitter.
then social, and then I gate crashed a set of loose women one day.
Well, we got talking during the pandemic. And that's how we sort of first made contact with each other. I was particularly vocal about some lockdown stuff. And we got talking. And then we became Instagram pals. And then eventually we decided to go for lunch.
We went for breakfast.
We went for breakfast.
And then we both bonded over the amount of butter and salt that we enjoy on food.
We bonded over the amount of, when they bring the, because to me, you go, can I have toast and butter, please? So they bring you 2 pieces of toast.
And then this teeny little.
An inch of butter, which to you and I covers a corner.
Yeah.
And we bonded over that, then realised we were both ADHD.
Yeah.
Because we bonded. And then, of course, your son being my son's number 1 fan, which I hadn't been aware of. And
that was the
start of the friendship.
And you turning to me and going, when I said, I'm sorry, can I have another half pound of butter? And where the salt cellar doesn't work, and you were like, oh, we're going to be best friends.
Oh, we're going to be total best friends. And then we continued to send each other butter memes.
Yeah, tied up my new cookbook, Butter and Salt. And then we went to the gig in January, which was like nearly 18 months ago.
Oh, when we went to Matty's gig at Brighton. And
they came on stage and Dan burst into tears and I went, you got one next to you now.
Well, no, but before that, remember, we were walking through the crowds, and obviously at a 1975 gig, I get recognised. Even with people who don't know me off the telly, they know me as Matt's mum. So we were walking through the crowd and people were getting a bit leery. And Dan held my hand.
I said, Dan. I went, no, Dan, stop. Do you want Dan? And you went, oh, yes, please.
So Dan held my hand through the crowd, which then made it onto TikTok. And Dan became known as Hot Tattoo Guy.
Hot Tattooed Man.
Yes, Hot Tattoo Guy. And then when he'd go to the gigs, they'd go, oh my God, there's Hot Tattoo
Hot
Guy.
Tattooed Man, yeah. Mental. And then without knowing, in Belfast, Matty swapped shirts with him. So he had this double whammy.
Because he went to nearly every gig, didn't he?
And Japan and Europe and
then
States.
he met up with them in Japan as well.
Met with them in Japan, yeah. It was all very, quite dramatic when you're like, where's my son? I don't know, let's find out where the 1975 are. That's where he'll be.
That's it. That's how you find it. It's
I'm like, where are you today? Oh, actually, no, he's in between shows, so he's probably still in either Copenhagen, I don't know.
He is a proper super fan though, isn't he? But I think what's nice about Dan is that seeing when he was sat next to me in Brighton, and when Matty came on and started singing and Dan burst into tears, it's the fact that, yes, he loves the music and everything, but Matty's lyrics changed the course of a lot of Dan's life.
Oh, yeah,
and they mean, he knows every single lyric and they all mean something to him.
It's not even, like I'm a super fan of bands and stuff, but it's another level. Like he's covered in all the tattoos on his body, tell the story, everything. I like it when you came to the office and Josie had a neck and I went, have you seen her neck? And you went, I assume that's something of Matthew's.
Yes.
You're just like, I assume it's something of Matthew's. But when we spoke on Twitter, the other thing we finally bonded on was people that have blocked us.
And there's quite a lot of them. Well, I didn't know that Jeremy Vine had blocked me.
He's blocked me too.
Has he blocked you as well?
Because I pulled him up on something. He was being a bit trollish. And I was like, no. You know he's obsessed with the biking thing.
Well, I have to say, he had blocked me before this, but the other day I put a photo out on Instagram. It was tongue-in-cheek, but it was a photo of sort of cyclists 10 abreast.
Yeah.
And put, when I'm Prime Minister, I will be banning cyclists. The end.
And that's...
Yeah, and I would. I totally would.
Well,
the mammals, the middle-aged men in Lycra.
There's a bit on Hammersmith Road. This is what happened. There's a bit on Hammersmith, and he videos people. I mean, he's obsessed. He videos people on his helmet.
He is obsessed.
And he just basically pulls people out, calls them out and puts their license plate on and gets people fired. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. He did pull out and nearly kill someone. But he says, look at this bike undertaking. And I went, hang on a minute. First of all, if you know that junction and you ride it every single day, twice a day, you know that lane goes straight up only. He's not undertaking anyone on that band.
You got blocked.
All I did was point out that actually you're being a bit inflammatory here. That's not what happened.
People that are all for free speech, like him and like Piers Morgan, they block you if you... Are you blocked by Piers Morgan?
I don't know why he blocked me, because it could have been a number of things, let's be honest. But yeah, I'm blocked by Piers Morgan.
You're blocked by Piers Morgan, yeah. I'm on...
Or Piers Dorgan, as I like to call
I'm
him.
I'm on Katie Hopkins' tour poster for saying,
nice.
You are a disgusting piece of you-know-what.
Oh, we swear,
Denise
don't
Welch.
worry.
So I'm actually, a badge of honour.
Fame.
Yeah, fame for calling her a disgusting piece of you-know-what, which she is. Anyway.
How do you generally cope with the social media? You seem to kind of bat it away most of the time.
I do, because I'm
it's
aware.
It's not like you're 25, is it?
I'm aware of what Twitter is. On Instagram, I have a lovely following.
Yeah.
If there is a part of Instagram where people troll me, I don't see it.
Yeah.
So I post something and I look at the comments that are left under that post. I wouldn't actually know how to. I'm not very social media savvy. So I wouldn't know how to look at the other stuff. But everything that I usually get, apart from the odd one, is very, very positive on Instagram. And, predominantly a female fan, not one of fan base, follower base.
You have got a fan base.
And then on Twitter, I don't really care what Doris from Darlington with 2 followers really says about me.
No.
Sometimes I will be in the mood to just think, I'm going to give you a little taste of your own medicine, and I will retweet it so that then they get a little bit of a
and then you're called a bully.
And then
you
are totally called
You walked into this
bully.
gunfight, and now you want to run
and
away.
the people on Twitter are like the people who comment on the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
The Daily Mail online commenters, I think they sit there. They've never had a date in their life. They're always downstairs in their mother's bunker.
In the basement, yeah.
And they sit there, no matter who the person is, whether it's me, you, whether it's George Clooney, whatever, they sit there to say horrible things, no matter who it is.
Just don't look at it.
So if I'm in the right, because I'm on the Mail Online a lot, because doing Loose Women, everything we say goes on the Mail Online. If I'm in the right mood, like a good mood, I will sometimes have a look and read them out to Lincoln, and we are often in tears laughing. But I know how somebody that's not used to it gets on the Mail Online for whatever reason, and they think their life is over when they go on the Daily Mail Online, and you have to explain to them that these are
not
a
real
different
life.
breed of sewer rat. Yes.
It's not real life.
No.
I find when I'm out and about with you, you either get young girls who think that you're their mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Because you have 2 very popular sons.
Yeah.
Or you have the sort of drivers of white vans going, all right.
Yeah.
Because they think you're maybe Natalie from Corrie.
I kind of know as someone approaches me.
What demographic though?
What demographic. So I know if they're a Denise, because I've been around a long time, whether it's Loose Women or whether it's any of the other things that I've done. And even taxi drivers do say, haven't seen you on Corrie for a while. I'll go, that'll be 23 years then, but never mind, crack on. So I can tell as the person approaches what type of fan they are. When I go anywhere and I see the girls of a certain age looking at me, I know that they are Matty fans, and they somehow feel that I've given birth to the Messiah.
Yeah, you are.
And they
you
have
are
a
Mother
reverential Virgin Mary look at me. And one girl at the O2 touched me and burst into tears. That's,
it's the power of the boys.
It's the power.
They're laughing. I've seen it in action. It's very entertaining.
Yeah.
There is a clip of us at Brighton at the first gig, and Denise was spotted in the crowd, and the whole place turns to look at Denise, and she's just standing like this.
It's like I'm Ava Perron, like Don't Cry for Me, Brighton, just doing this, and they all said, I mean, that happened to me at Madison Square Garden in New York as well, because you'll get one little pocket who sees you come in, and then they will
builds.
go, Mom, like this, and then it sort of does a ripple effect, and at the end, I don't know what to do. So I'm just standing Ava Peron-like
And it
waving on the
helps
balcony.
when Matty goes on stage, she goes, Mum's in the house tonight.
Oh, yes, he
and
does.
I'm like,
yes,
oh,
sometimes.
God, everyone's going to turn and look at us now.
I know, sometimes. And also when he sings "Oh Caroline" and you pretend it's about you.
Obviously.
Yes.
But didn't one of your
Which it
mates
might well
ask
be.
you if that was about me? Can you imagine? I'm like,
Yeah.
I can guarantee it's not about me. Can you imagine?
So there's also another person that I can spot. And in fact, today there was a woman in the audience, and we actually featured her because she had really short blonde hair. She was lovely, glasses on, called Lisa. And her husband shouted, "Oh, look, we've got a Denise Welch lookalike," and we all laughed and everything. Normally, what will happen is we'll be out somewhere and Lincoln calls them spinners and he'll say, "Oh, we've got a spinner." And it's people who try to pretend they haven't recognised you and then they do sort of like a double spin, and a very loud stage whisper of "it is," which you can hear. And usually it's somebody who, this will sound like I'm being fattest, but I suppose I kind of am. Somebody who's about 33 stone with one tooth, and they'll come up to me and go, I'm always being mistaken for you." And I have to go, "And what's your name?" They'll say Maureen. And I go, Maureen, it's like looking in a mirror, honestly.
And Lincoln just goes...
Yeah, one tooth. Luckily, lovely Lisa today had a full set.
A full set of teeth. And the Palladium audience for Loose Women is a bit older. It ebbs a bit older. And they were, every time you opened your mouth, they were in hysterics.
We sold out the Palladium.
You did. It was packed.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I thought it was very much a regional sort of show, which it was, and it went very well in the regions. But we absolutely sold out the Palladium. And I know that there was a couple of ITV people thinking, "Oh, you maybe ought to tone your stories down a little bit at the Palladium." And I thought, well, I'll say that I'm going to. And then, of course, I absolutely didn't.
No, and they loved it.
Well, the thing is, you've got to, if you're doing a tour of Loose Women, which is the first one we've ever done in 25 years of the show, I've done it for about 23 years off and on, because obviously predominantly I'm an actress, and I would go off and do, a drama series, come back and all that kind of thing. But you've got to give them something that they're not going to see on the television. Exactly. And they love that sort of slightly,
and anything about Lincoln
risque, and anything about Lincoln, and anything about,
marriage,
somebody's Willie or something like that. They all love. And obviously I've got plenty of stories.
But like you're saying, you've been on Loose Women that long.
I have. I can't believe that I have, but I have.
Is it the same now?
I had a 7-year gap when I left. I left for 7 years. Yeah. And then the new producer asked me back, something I'd never considered. I didn't consider going back. Life was going on, and because when it was time for me to leave for various reasons, when I did, and you don't expect to sort of go back. But anyway, the new producer Sally was bringing the show back to me where it should be. And that's when she said, "Would you like to come back?" And I did, and it's been fabulous ever.
Are you enjoying it
since.
as much as you did in the beginning?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I like the fact that I like it when there is a slightly there is a good mix of, like today we had a perfect example. We had a real giggle about certain things. I'm a real ranter on Instagram, which because I'm so sick of the service in this country. I am absolutely sick.
It's atrocious.
And somebody had said, in a response to one of my rants yesterday, they said, "I think that at the end of the pandemic, we were all put into a sleeper, and when we woke up, aliens had taken over and everything was just shit." And I actually agree with that. So I'd been doing a rant. Everybody was laughing. We were laughing about all sorts of different things. But then we had a massive gear change, and we had the wonderful Esther G on, who lost her daughter, Brianna, who was murdered last year. And it was a massive shift. She was a great guest. She's an incredible woman. And so, we can do those stories as well. And it's funny, I was saying to Nadia the other day, Nadia Sawala, I said, I love it on Twitter when you get Doris from Darlington, or Beryl from Biker or whatever. And they go, "Oh, it's the Nadia and Denise show. It's not about you, It's like, it is though, Doris. That's actually the whole point. It is an opinion and anecdotally led show. So it actually is about us, Doris. So shut the up.
Yeah, they don't get it.
Thank you.
What do you think it takes to be a good panellist and something like that?
Experience.
Having an opinion and not being afraid to talk about things.
I think so. I think the best panellists are, we have some great younger women in. It has to be about not just having the experiences, but being prepared to talk about them.
Yes.
So there have been times that we have tried panelists out, because some people who are just famous think they could be a loose woman.
Yeah.
It's much more than that. I think, like with anything, one of the things about me, Caroline, which I think you know, is that I take my work very seriously. I don't take myself very seriously. But actually, by us making it look easy, as if, oh, it's just 4 women who turn up at 12:30 and go on and talk bollocks, it's actually not.
No.
We're in at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Actually, we're very informed. We have to self-edit 1,000,000 times more than we did. We live in a very PC world.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful, because you will offend somebody every single day, and it drives me mad.
Yeah.
So you have to do that. But you also have to work to timings. But in answer to your question, you have to have had life experience, but be prepared to talk about it.
If you don't share it, you're just a bystander.
Otherwise, you are just a bystander. And there are several people over the years who we have had come on who just say what we always say is, if we talk about it in the meeting, we've got to talk about it on air. Yeah. Some people will come in the meeting room in the morning and they'll tell an amazing story, and at the end of it they say, but I can't talk about that on the telly then. It's like, well, shut up then.
What are you wasting time for?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we, particularly me, have always got a little start of the meeting where I'll say, this is not going on the telly, but this is what happened last night. Those of us who've been there a long time have been people who've, people have grown up with us on the show. And there's always, people have their favourite girls, women, they have their favourite foursomes, they have their favourite lineups. I think we all are on Loose Women. We're a little bit Marmite. There's those people who absolutely love you and hang on to your every word, and other people who,
I think
who
the
don't.
other person that has that same kind of effect is Janet.
Yes, very much so.
When she walked on stage after you all and just obviously it's her thing, just looking perfectly miserable, it was also brilliant because she half means it. And then the story she told about her various marriages and things, again, completely open.
Yeah.
Got the crowd on her side straight away.
Yeah.
And it's just fun because
As I
everyone
say,
has those experiences.
Yeah. I mean, and Janet is somebody who is a bit like me. She's had a very, very different life to me, but she's very open about talking about it. I just think that nearly every part of my life has been written about, either because I've chosen for it to be, or people have made up their own narrative. Yeah. So it's actually been quite nice in some ways that I am able to redress things.
And speak out when you want to in response on Insta and things like that.
Well, yeah, I'm very passionate about certain things, and I'm not frightened about what people. That's one of the wonderful things about age, is that you're not. When I say you have to temper yourselves, because I never want to offend anybody.
No.
But, I was very vocal during COVID. It was never a vaccination thing, never, ever, ever. I was always incredibly well informed. I was very much aware of a lot of the bullshit that was going on. I knew that Downing Street never paid attention to any of the rules in there, because I was on a WhatsApp group with people who were in Westminster and everything. If ever I wanted to talk about anything, I would make sure that my producers saw that when I said I've been talking to an epidemiologist today, that they knew that I had, because there was the text conversation. So it was a very serious time. It was a very serious virus. But there was a lot of bullshit and hypocrisy that went on, which I think now we all know about. Exactly. And I was one of the few people who was speaking out about it. So that made me a lot of enemies as well as a lot of support.
Does the difference in opinion with any of the other panellists ever spill over into personal?
And I can honestly say that. I get really, 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 really fed up with these headlines about it's all toxic. Do you know what really pisses? Can I swear in here?
Oh, absolutely.
What really pisses me off is the fact that if this was all men,
no, exactly.
it would be a heated debate.
That's what I always say.
And with us, it's all, catty women, toxic environment. If I just, I say Kay Adams and I, we've known each other for 100 years. What Jane Moore and I have known each other for 30 years, way before Loose Women. So we have the friendship whereby we can say something that might appear a little bit bitchy to the others, but it's because of the friendship that we got, that we've got. And suddenly the papers are picking it up. Denise Welch or Jane Moore shades. It's really, really annoys me. If this was a toxic environment, I don't need to be there.
You don't
Caroline.
want to be there for all this time.
I wouldn't want to be there.
No.
Do I get on with some people more than others? Of course, that's human nature.
That's just life.
I do more shows. Do I enjoy doing shows with other women who share my views for? Oh, I know I can bounce off more. Of course I do. But I can honestly say that in 20 odd years, I mean, Carol McGiffin and I used to have some humdingers on there, but as soon as we walked off set, it was not even an issue.
It's not a big thing. Digressing. I saw you on stage.
Oh, in me play.
In your play.
You did.
And I cannot begin to describe the energy that you put out. And you're sometimes doing 2 shows a day.
Yeah.
Doing that run. So how many shows did you do in the end?
Well, we did the run for 5 weeks,
Yeah.
and we were doing 7, sometimes 8 shows a week, which is normal in the theatre.
I get that, but it's an active play.
Do you know, it was a wonderful. I was really thrilled that you came up. I had so much support from my friends who don't live around the corner from Manchester at Hope Mill Theatre that I'm a patron of. As you know, this wonderful theatre, isn't it, in Ancoats, which is where I chose to do the play. A Jim Cartwright play. Jim is one of my favourite writers. I did Little Voice for him, The Rise and Fall of Little Voice years ago, and at the Royal Exchange in Manchester, I've done another play of his, A Bolton Octagon. And he's asked me over the years to do another one, and this one was called The Gap. And it was a 2-hander with me and Matthew Kelly, a great actor.
He was brilliant.
And a wonderful person. I had dinner with him the other night. I love him. And it was terrifying. It is 2 of you on stage for 2 hours, and nobody else is going to come on and help you. And the way that Jim Cartwright writes is it's very naturalistic, but in a stylized way. That may sound like a paradox, but that's how it is. And it's very poetic. There's a pentameter to it. There's a rhythm to it. And but I got out of that play what I wanted. I just felt last year, I have many strings to my bow. And as a woman of 65 approaching 66, as an actress, as a presenter, you have to stay relevant. And therefore, you have to take, other jobs that aren't necessarily acting, otherwise that you'll never work. And I am a good presenter, and I enjoy presenting as well. But what that can do is that can make people forget actually what you do. Exactly. So this wasn't a case of reminding other people. I just kind of needed to remind myself. I wanted to be in a rehearsal space where I felt safe, going to work every day, away from television people because they're a different breed, with theatre people, doing words that I loved to do. Because very often your money-making acting jobs are turning other people's stuff into gold that is certainly not gold on the paper. And it was just wonderful to do that play. And I reminded myself that that's what I do best. It's my job.
But you were so good. And I mean, also, talking about being 65, what's your process for remembering lines? It's a very wordy play. And
I'll be honest.
There is dancing.
Well,
it's high energy.
To those other people in the room, when I say there was dancing, it was a slight movement to the point that I've got a frozen shoulder from doing that 60s dancing that I had to do. Normally over the years, how do you learn your lines is the most common question that I'm sure you've got a similar one in your line that the most common question that people will say. The answer is, if something is well written and you have time to rehearse, the lines will come.
Right.
They go into muscle memory.
Right.
However, I have never done anything that was as hard to learn as this because it was written in a non-linear fashion, in as much as a lot of the play we were talking out to the audience. It wasn't to the audience. It was meant to be a journalist, an invisible journalist in the audience, but in theory it was to the audience. And a lot of the time, Matthew's character, Walter, or one of the other characters he played, was talking about going back up north and, looking after his poorly mother, while I'm talking about being on the game in London in the 60s. And so if one of you felt like you were going to dry, there is nothing that other actor said that's going to remind you. If I dry on a line like, what time's tea? And your next line is, it's, we're having fish and chips at 7:00. That person can help you out.
Yeah.
But it was, there was a few moments every night where Matthew and I had to help each other out. You'll remember at the beginning of Act 2, my character was in Malta on a sunbed. Matthew was just playing a non-verbal character called, that were just the waiter who couldn't speak any English. And I was in the middle of this speech and I suddenly thought, if my life depends on it, I haven't got a fucking clue what I say next. So I'm just going to smile and fan myself with my fan and hope that my co-star can help me out of this. Oh my God, no, he fucking can't, because he can't speak English. So I am just going to have to do this. And then something happens and it just comes. But it's terrifying. And so we each had those moments that nobody would have known. I mean, nobody in a million years would have known. But it was lovely, and enough to make me think that, you know, as long as I can, maybe once a year, I'd like to do a play.
And re-establish yourself. Just be like, this is what I do. I enjoy doing this, but this is my vocation.
This is what I do. And even if it's only the people in Hope Mill see me do it, that's fine for me. It's just what I like the best.
Is stage your favourite? Or telly, as in TV actress, not presenting?
Yes.
Done a fair whack on telly.
I have done a fair whack on telly. I love TV drama, but in all fairness, a lot of TV drama, it's why my kids never, ever, ever were just bothered about, because Louis is a young actor, about being famous, because they've been on my sets. 99% of the time you're sitting around picking your nose. You really are. So that's why you want to do theatre, because once you are on stage, you know, the first line of the play, you're on stage, no director's going to come on and tell you to stop, to cut, to do this. It's up to you and you're in control of it. So I think that's why, and there is nothing like a live audience.
I like that you mentioned Louis, because I think he gets, understandably, a little bit overshadowed by his big brother.
He's very happy with that.
I'm sure. But I have to tell you, I love that boy. I know he's a man. I know he's a man.
And he started moisturising because of you. Thank you very much.
He is the manners, and Matty too, when I've met Matty, but the manners, the way they've been brought up is such a testament to you. They are such good lads. And I know it sounds ridiculous. I'm not old enough to be Matthew's mother, but I could be if I'd had him when I was like 13.
Well,
you know.
There you go.
But Louis was so, like, we walked in when we saw them in Manchester. And obviously I'm with Dan and Stacey, you know, and Max.
And I wasn't there because I was on stage.
You went there, yeah. We'd been to see you on stage.
That's right. You did a double whammy.
Did the double whammy. We were doing the Healy family today and go to see Denise at matinee. And then we go to the gig and we went in and Louis literally went, guys, because he didn't know we were going to be there. And then we have this whole chat with him. And then he ends up going, his roommate comes over and goes, you're the face woman. I use your skincare. I nicked it off him. And then Louis going, I knew you'd nicked it. And then this whole conversation started. But what I wanted to ask you was...
He's taken mine that you brought up to the theatre for me. He's found my secret stash of your product. So I need to talk to you about that when we finish.
Well, I've sent stuff and I've got some meat.
All right, good.
But I wanted to ask you about the music you played around them when they were growing up. Because do you know the song Waiting for a Star to Fall by Boy Meets Girl?
No. By who?
I beg to differ, you do, because if we played it, I tell you...
I'm not very good at music, you know. You know much more than me.
But it'll be one of those that comes on, you go, oh, I love this.
Right, I probably will, because I never know the names of anything.
Back in the day, when Dan was first introducing me to the 1975, I was like, Mum, you got to listen to this. I was listening, I was like, yeah, this is good. I went, I've got to tell you something, this is massively influenced by 80s music.
It is influenced by 80s music.
Because I'm enjoying it. Like, I was like, you know, normally I listen to like Ava's music, I'm like, I can't, babe, I love you, but it's not for me, you know. And I was like, this is massively. And then he played things like, and then even like on Change of Heart, I'm like, do you know the song Waiting for a Star to Fall, Dan? And he was like, no.
Who's that by then?
Boy Meets Girl. It was like a one-off.
Oh, right.
Waiting for a star to fall.
Right, okay.
Right?
Oh, yes, I do know it.
And it has this brilliant saxophone from the beginning, because any good 80s pop song
I wouldn't have known that was the lyrics
heavy.
of it.
But at the gig, so I'd said this to Dan, and then we'd gone, and Dan was obsessed with John, the sax player for the band.
Yeah, he's getting married in May.
Oh. Yeah. And as we're talking to Louis, and literally Dan goes, oh, I love him because John just walked by and he'd been saying hello to him, and then Louis talking to me about moisturiser. And then Daniel goes, you know, my mum says that while I'm standing there, like they do, they talk about you as if you're not there. You know, my mum says that that the band really sound like, do you know the song Waiting for a Star to Fall? Louis goes, waiting for a star to fall.
He would.
And then we're all
the 80s
carry
stuff.
Your heart into, like literally.
And also, Matthew came to see me. He came to see a musical with me a few years ago, which was beautiful, which was the Carole King musical. And Cassidy Jansen, who I knew, was playing the lead, and Matthew was over from somewhere, and I took him. And there's a song called Mine. Mm-hmm. And he said to me when he wrote that, he said, I wrote that. It was influenced in my head with Carole King because you took me to see that musical. The Jersey Boys.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Because
every time
Frankie Valli,
you share something, it's music.
I would was very much the George Benson, Earth, Wind and Fire, obviously Michael Jackson, that they both grew up obsessed with. There's 12 years apart between the two of them, but their dad was very much the Wilson Pickett. And they've got massive, very, very influential. The great thing about both my kids is if you said what music are they into, you know how kids do this thing. If I'm in the car with Louis, he cannot let just one song come to the end of it.
No.
Chopping and changing. So he'll go from James Taylor to Slipknot. Honestly, it's ridiculous.
It's like being with my kids.
Yeah. And they know, and they put heavy metal on, which I hate, and they put, I don't know what you call it, but I just call it do music. Do. I cannot bear. Is it house or dance? I can't bear it. I like to have a tune. I like a melody.
I like to sing. And that's why Waiting for a Star to Fall is so good, because it has this brilliant sax intro, and now it's just a permanent earworm. So when it comes on, we all have that moment of going,
oh, and the real thing. You to me are everything. Still one of my favourite tunes.
When you posted that and I reposted it, it said it's Mr. Hirons' #1 tune of all time. He wants it
that's right, you said it was Jim's thing.
The amount of Americans, they never made it to America. I had no idea. So all these Americans are going, what's this song?
No,
and I'm like, what?
They're from Scousers.
And they were Scousers.
They're Scousers, yeah. They played my ball a few years ago. They were the final act at my ball. They did.
If you get ABBA this year, I'll be very happy.
Well, we've got some good ABBA stuff coming up, I'll tell you.
You mentioned that it was 12 years between the lads, mainly because after Matty, you had this complete
breakdown, postnatal depression.
Yeah, complete breakdown. But it started it and kick-started it for life, which is unusual, isn't it? Because most people will have postnatal depression, or yours was a proper postnatal syndrome, and it triggered.
Yeah, that is the only reason. You said mainly the only reason why there is 12 years between. In fact, there wasn't going to be a Louis.
Yeah, that's why I was.
I was pregnant. I hadn't been with their dad that long, but we were over the moon to get pregnant. We weren't trying, but we weren't, I suppose, not trying enough. Anyway, and we were in our 30s and whatever. And we had everything we had. We were madly in love with each other. We had money in the bank. His career was soaring. Mine was sort of all right. I was desperate to have a child. And everything on that level was great. I had a wonderful pregnancy. I was a typical blooming woman in pregnancy, that phrase that you oft hear. My skin was great. My hair was great. I loved being pregnant. A little bit of indigestion towards the end. Yeah. But if they'd said to me, you got another 2 months, my happy hormones were raging and I was great. So all of my friends, particularly my gay friends, used to joke, which are predominantly my friends, used to joke and say, oh, you'll have the baby and 2 hours later you'll be at a nightclub with us, and you'll whatever. And that was sort of the joke of it all. And I was having him national health because Tim was a bit of a, champagne socialist, shall we say. But the NHS was pretty much, the hospital I was in was on its knees then, and I was just being treated for the same infection 4 times, the usual thing. So I went privately to a hospital in Hendon, and it was all fine, but it was a natural childbirth hospital, which I didn't really intend to do. But I said, there will be pain relief, won't there? And they went, Mrs. Healy, this is not the Victorian times. Of course there'll be pain relief. There wasn't, but never mind. But nevertheless, I went to full term. I had this baby after a long 42-hour labour. Matthew was in there, listening to the radio and having a joint probably. And he took ages to come out. And but he did, and he was healthy, and it was a boy. And my mum and dad, I remember, they'd always thought I'd have a girl because they'd only had girls. And it's a very long story, but 5 days later we were ready to go home, and we were driving through Finchley, and it's still an area of London that I hate that word triggered, but sometimes it just defines what you mean. When we drive through Finchley, I'm not comfortable. Yeah. No disrespect to Finchley. It's just that's where it happened
to be.
And we were driving through, and you got the baby, and he's in the back, and everything's fine. And I just remember feeling weird. I felt like as if I was in a dream sequence outside looking in. But it was all right. It was just odd. Then I got in the house, in the flat that we lived in Highgate, and there was flowers and cards and everything I opened. I was bursting into tears and I thought, oh, this is the baby blues. I just felt a bit odd. This is the baby blues. Everyone says you get that. But one of the most things that I had ever looked forward to was the first day that my parents would see their first grandchild. I was very close to my parents, as you know, as you were. So I'd had him on the Saturday. On the Wednesday, we went home. And on the Wednesday night, I went to bed and I had a panic attack for the first time in my life. And it wasn't based on anything. I wasn't nervous. I was feeding. Okay, turns out now there wasn't enough. So he was crying, but I wasn't nervous. I wasn't anxious. And I had this panic attack. And it was the worst thing I'd ever experienced. And I can only describe it as when you're driving along in your car and somebody cuts in front of you and you think you're going to crash, your heart is racing out of your skin. But you pull into a lay-by and you don't crash, and eventually that will subside and off you go. It was like the crash and never stopping. And I must have had 2 hours sleep, and I woke up in the morning and the whole lactation process had stopped. So I'd gone from having full boobiana boobs to nothing. And I mean nothing, like spaniel's ears. And this community midwife came round and she was bloody awful. And she said to me, because I'd never met her before, you know, and she said, oh, well, that's not very common. She said that normally happens when a spouse or a parent dies. So you'll have to go out and get some bottles. Well, that is not what you want to hear. Jesus. You want somebody to say, this can happen.
Don't worry about it.
Anyway, I went out for a walk with my mum and we went to this cafe. I'd lived in Crouch End for years, so I knew this area. And everything was happening like it was a dream sequence. And my mum said, you're not depressed, are you? And I said, no, I'm not depressed. I just feel very strange. On the way back, we went into a corner shop to get some milk. And on the radio, it was April the 19th, 1989. And on the radio, they were reporting the Hillsborough disaster. And I came out the shop and I can remember this lucidly, saying to Mum, the most awful thing has happened. 96 people have been killed in Sheffield at this terrible, was it Sheffield? Yeah. This terrible things happened. By the time we walked half a mile back, because it was the first time we'd been out with a baby, by the time we walked half a mile back, I can remember saying something, Mum asking me a question about the Hillsborough disaster. And I said, that was a dream. I told you that was a dream. And she said, no, Poppet, you told me that. And I said, oh, my God, why are you trying to make me go mad? And she thought, fuck. And within an hour of getting in the house, this blackness went from my toes up. And I was in a suicidal depression, which I can just remember that happening. After that, I was apparently on the verge of a puerperal psychosis. So my mum had come into the lounge to find me on the windowsill. When I then told that story years later, whatever, the press picked it up as that I was trying to jump out the window. I wasn't. Sake. I didn't know I didn't know what was happening. I was questioning who the baby was. Then I would come back into lucidity. And my mum had to take time off work, for weeks off work because Tim was away. It was an awful time. And so, yes, it was severe postnatal depression, which then opened up a tendency to depression for my life. And very early on, maybe within 2 years, I was filming Spender and Biker Grove at the same time, going through periods of being quite poorly. And I did an article for the local paper. And I said I was going to talk about the depression. And my agent at the time, it was about 110.
Oh,
said,
don't do that.
Said, no. You can't be talking about that. People are thinking you're mad. And I said, Dennis, not in a million years am I not going to talk about this. No. And if I never work again, so be it. But if this can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And that sort of started my now 34-year-long mental health advocacy, really.
Because it's incredible. It was nothing before. You were completely lucid,
I'd never had 1 day of psychological illness before. If I ever said, oh, God, I'm so depressed. It's the way that, I don't blame people for saying that.
No.
If the weather's shitty, if you haven't got a job, if somebody's died.
Yeah.
But the thing is with my depression, it was endogenous. So there's endogenous and reactive. Reactive, if something terrible happens, your depression will come on.
Yeah.
Mine was endogenous. I could be talking to you. I could be talking to the lovely gang in this room and going for a coffee with them. And suddenly I would get a metallic taste in my mouth and a tingling in my palms. And then it would be on me. In fact, Matthew's song "She Lays Down," is about his grown-up memories of my depression. And anyway, but for 5 years, touch wood, for reasons unknown, I haven't had
Well,
an
that's
episode.
what I was going to say, because when you're out of it, do the doctors give you any idea of the why, or is it just put down to the women's health thing of we don't know why?
Well, when it was postnatal depression and they were sending me to see these psychiatrists, it was about as much use as the chocolate fire god, because I got the sort of the half smile of, well, you know,
you've just had a baby.
Well, you've just had a baby, and nobody said it was going to be easy.
Yeah.
As if my depression was because having a baby was hard work. It was the most insulting thing. It took me 20 years of saying, do you think you could just check my hormones?
And they didn't do it.
This guy at the Priory was going, oh, it is not the hormone. I think you have temporal lobe epilepsy. I was tested for temporal lobe epilepsy. Do you know, Caroline? I was desperate for it to be temporal lobe epilepsy.
Because you'd have an answer.
Because I'd have an answer and I'd go, oh my God, you've been treating me wrong. I can have the drug for that.
So how old is Matthew when you get your hormones finally tested?
Probably, well, it was 20 years after he was 20.
Yeah.
And I get my hormones tested, not just at the normal doctor when everything comes back going, oh, that was fine. I went to see this guy on Harley Street, Wimpole Street, who was a gynecologist, who another actress who had a very similar pattern of depression told me about. And she'd actually had a full hysterectomy for her hormones. And he said to me, you are so deficient in estrogen, I don't know how you are alive, is what he said to me.
And you're how old at this point?
I was, I was 50, no, hang on a minute. I was 31.
So you're 51.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Jesus, Denise.
Yeah. And it was a long, long time. And that didn't cure me, but it made things better. And then when I was doing Waterloo Road, a series that I did, I then started to get worse again. And I think that what was happening was that I was going through menopause. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was already on estrogen. I wasn't having this sort of symptomy thing. So it was all a very, very confusing time. And of course, it all led to my alcohol and addiction issues.
Something that we share in terms of talking about things is vertigo.
Yeah.
And you talking
mine's
about...
back after 6 months.
So mine's been back, but mine's jet lag triggered.
I think it is.
And obviously we went up this huge building in New York and I'm looking at the sites and I'm like, it's okay, it's not bad. And then of course we get down and I am...
spinning.
I'm like, whoa. And it's fine because I had labyrinthitis when I had a horrendous. That's my worst experience because... And they literally give you antipsychotic meds for that.
Yeah, they do.
And you get deja vu, you have visions. And I mean, it was horrendous. I was lying on the floor. They called an ambulance because they thought I was having a heart attack because you can't speak when it's happening. And now I know it's coming on. It's usually when I've had a cold. It's a head cold.
It's a bit like a migraine. I imagine, Matty has migraines, and and I know someone in your team here. We were talking about it before we came on air. That there's sort of like this aura thing that you get when you know you're having it.
Yeah.
And we actually, because when 6 months ago I've been free of vertigo until this week, and I always knew it would come back. I just have to maybe do a really strong éplé maneuver thing. But
with the head and all this.
With the head and all that. But when the audiologist did it for me 6 months ago, it was so traumatizing. I was spinning so badly. I took to my bed for 3 days, but on the fourth day, it was gone.
Right.
It's whether it's like, oh my God, please don't make me go through that. But the point I was making is I had to phone my producer, Ashley, or get Lincoln to phone him and say, because I was going to have this treatment and then go to work. I couldn't walk, let alone get on a train. Anyway, Ashley said a few weeks ago, are you happy to talk about vertigo? And I said, well, if you think anybody's interested, Ashley, I'll talk about it. It was one of the most viewed and replayed episodes that they've had in months.
They don't.
It's who knew how many people have it.
Tell you, because that's what I was going to say. And the only reason I brought up the postnatal is because do you think, because obviously you've been an advocate for years and you talk about it openly. I remember in the early days when I followed you, you had an episode on Twitter. You know, you said, I can feel I'm going into this.
Oh, I did. That's the one that went viral.
Yeah,
it was on News at 10. It was a bong.
I feel I can feel I'm going into this. And I was watching that. My heart was sinking. And I was like, oh, my God, because you could see it was taking you over as you were talking.
I don't know what. I hadn't had one for a while. And I was, and it was because every time I would talk about it on television, which I've done many times, as I've said before, over the years, you're always talking about the episode or the breakdown, as we used to call them, in the past tense, the last time I had this, but now look at me, I'm fine now, but da-ba-da-ba-da. And this was September 2019, pre-pandemic years. And I'm driving up to the north with Lisa, who's been a family friend for years, and her kids, Bella and Pixie, who are Matty's godddaughters. And we're driving up to the northeast to see my family, and we're all dead excited, and everybody's singing in the car. And I remember they were singing the song of Matty's that's got the swearing in it, People.
Yeah.
Because they could get away with swearing because it was Matty's song, you know. Anyway, we're all laughing away, and we get to the Angel of the North, and I suddenly, again, I'm in the middle of a complete normal chat with Lisa and laughing at the kids. And I get this feeling, and I can feel the taste. And within 15 seconds, it's on me. And what happens is I go quiet. Basically, this is what it's like. It's like the colour goes out of my life. Everything goes from Technicolor into black and white. Nothing I have ever been looking forward to means anything. And what annoys me, is that any medical book you pick up, anything you read about depression, and I understand it because it is hard to find something to compare it with, they will say it's extreme sadness. It is totally and utterly not anything to do with sadness. Sadness is what you and I felt when our mums died, what I felt when my dad died. Sadness is something that is the result of something making you sad. Depression does exactly what it says on the tin. It depresses you. Every single emotion, so you feel nothing. And my analogy used to be that you're in this black nothingness. And if someone knocked on the door and said, you've just won, this is how long I've been saying this. I say the pools. If someone knocked on your door and said, you've won £10 million on the pools, or the lottery, as we would probably say now, or your whole family have been wiped out in an aircraft disaster.
You're just like...
Nothing. And that is why people take their own lives. Because it's not that they want to die, they want to stop the pain. And that's why it's such a horrendous illness.
My question was going to be, do you think it's better now for new mums? Do you think now that there's more awareness, which you have been a part of? Let's be honest, you talking about it has definitely helped. Because if someone has that immediately happen to them, there will be someone in their life who has heard your story and says, do you think you should get your hormones checked?
There are now so many associations around the country. So if you were you see, when I had it, there was no Google, there was no phones, you know, and I remember there was one thing, the Association for Postnatal Illness, and you had to write. I couldn't hold a pen, I couldn't see. I lost 2 stone in 2.5 weeks. I sat on the end of the sofa saying to my mum, I just want an injection to make it all go away. That's what I wanted. Yeah, they absolutely were. And, you know, there was nowhere. Now, if you were feeling either you or somebody could Google postnatal depression groups Coventry, and some element of support would
There's also
would
great
come
midwife
up there.
services too, because when I was I spoke to Stacey Solomon for this pod, and she's very open about how she suffered with Zach, her first, and when she was having the last 3 in quick succession, Irish triplets, she said to the midwife, look, I did suffer, and there's now an NHS service where they give you a psych person to help go through. So, I mean, you've got to have a massive part in the role of that.
Well, you know, I mean, I've been very vocal. I do remember, and Lorraine Kelly and I have said this over the years, I do remember when I was in Coronation Street, and that was 23 years since I left that. I was doing it down the line to GMTV, I think it was then. And they always have a get up and give appeal every year. And it was always for something that was a physical illness. And this year they were having it for the first time for depression.
Wow.
And I spoke about it. Anyway, I remember ages later, Lorraine said to me, I just want to tell you, we have never had so much of a response to a charity appeal, because there actually wasn't anybody talking out about mental health issues, because there was such a stigma and such a taboo. And that's why, because I didn't finish that story very quickly, of the day that I was driving up with Lisa and I got the depression. I don't know what came over me, but I got to my sister's and I went upstairs in the bedroom, and I'd been looking forward to Debbie had got a few of my Northeastern girlfriends around, and I knew I couldn't talk to anybody. No. And I went up to the bedroom and I picked up the phone and I said, I am in the middle of a depression, and I am going to, however I feel, I am going to chronicle this over 3 or 4 days. And I did. I then put the phone down. I then went to bed. Lincoln looked after me. I had no idea it had gone viral. And I think it was almost like I'd never talked about it before, and I was fascinated by it. But actually, it's because it was in real time.
Yeah.
People saw when you talk
saw your
about
eyes.
the dead eyes.
They saw your eyes,
The
for
dead
sure.
eyes.
Terrifying.
And that's what my family, they can look at me across the room and I might be going, oh, and they can see that the deadness is in the eyes.
You had a recent post on Insta where you were doing cryotherapy and said that Matty had said, Mum, you've got to get in some ice. You've got to get somewhere cold.
Yeah.
Because you could feel yourself
I
maybe
could
getting
feel,
a little bit.
Yeah. And also because when I was doing the play, what happened was, because of the normal nerves that you would get approaching the play, my body started to mistake those nerves for anxiety.
Right.
And so I could feel the old feelings coming back. And it wasn't that I was scared, it's then I get scared of being ill. So I get scared of having depression on stage because that's happened before.
Oh, God.
And it's horrendous. So that's when Matty said to me, because he understands it, because he's experienced it himself.
And did it help?
It really does help.
I mean, it's very funny to watch you doing it.
It really, I mean, God, that bloody cryotherapy.
It was you going, how long have I got left? And they'd say 2.5 minutes. And you're like,
God. And I've still never done that ice bath thing. I mean, I've got friends who do that every morning. Sorry, I'd just rather have another 56 coffees.
You've had some pretty iconic looks.
Have I?
Over the years. Well, I just think of you put a clip up the other day of you when you were nominated for sexiest.
Oh, yes, somebody sent me that sexiest female. Can you imagine that we
Sexiest
had
female.
those awards?
I mean, when you look at it now, it's quite shocking, isn't it? It's like...
It is, really. I mean, yeah, Tamsin beat me to that one. Tamsin Outhwaite, how dare she?
But, in terms of Corrie, Biker Grove and things like that, is there anything that you look back and you think that was so much fun to do? I mean, you did your own makeup for the stage as well when you were doing The Gap.
You do you tend to mostly do your own makeup for the stage. If it's a big, massive... big money tour of something, you might have a wig mistress, but you'll pretty much still do your own makeup. I mean, I get to look back at my career things, not because I sit on YouTube, but because the other day we had a soap special.
Yeah.
So they showed Nadia in the 90s when she was in that, and they brought on Phil Middlemas who played Des Barnes, and they show my hair. I mean, my hair has not massively changed, which is a bit sad in a way. But then again, I've tried so many other styles. My hair's not very good when it grows. I've tried extensions, which there was a period for Loose Women in Waterloo Road. I had extensions. When that was done at the hairdressers, it was fine. Otherwise, I looked like Miss Peggy. So I tend to go back to... there was an iconic look that was... the sleeveless, the phantom sleeve cutter, one journalist used to call me in Coronation Street, because I had naturally quite good arms. And so I would always
it's
wear...
very annoying.
Well, I don't though. If only I did more work on them, they would probably ping back a little bit. What does Joan Collins say? When you're over 45, don't wave bye-bye to people if you're wearing a sleeveless top. So she used to, Jackie Stevens, she's called. She used to call me the phantom sleeve cutter.
I remember Jackie Stevens.
And just saying that I cut my sleeves out of every dress. So there have been some quite... people call my hair quite iconic. The great thing now is that I've paid for years to have this colour done, and now this is my natural colour. I don't have to pay for it anymore.
So when people are coming up to you in the street and they've got the same hair, you're like, oh,
mine's natural now.
Do you have any kind of... I'm always fascinated. I asked someone else this on the pod recently. Do you have any routine for removing everything? So when you come off stage, your makeup for The Gap is kind of like blue eyeshadow. It's kind of the time.
Yeah.
Do you get yourself home as quickly as possible and do everything there?
Yeah.
Or do you get everything done there and then go home?
No, I would never do it there partly because I would always have people downstairs waiting to see me because of the nature of that theatre. And generally, to be honest, I've not been a take your makeup off. Well, when I was playing Mrs. Otter in Wind in the Willows, I tried to. Having said that, I was aware of getting back to my flat that I was renting in Soho, having been in to get some, shopping at the corner shop, and still got whiskers and a nose on that I'd forgotten.
You would hope that in Soho they're used to it.
Well, I think that's why nobody mentioned it. Nobody even flickered. Nobody sort of went, "Why has that woman got a nose and whiskers on?" Because it was Soho. I'll be honest with you, Caroline, and I know I've said this to you. I am very lucky that what did George Bernard Shaw said? When you get to 50, you've got the face you deserve. I'm 65. I deserve a far worse one as regards skin.
Right.
Because I have abused it over the years. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm 12 years sober. Again, self-medicate. There's no excuses for things. There are reasons for things. And I was 38 and started medicating my depression, which was very prevalent. And unfortunately, that led to, alcohol and drug use. And thank God I've been 12 years sober with my beloved Lincoln. But during those days, as you can imagine, cleanse, tone and moisturize
wasn't really at the top of your list.
Does not really come at the top of your list, especially when you are going straight to work from your night out. I mean, I can't even believe my life. It's like I was a different person.
Yeah.
It's like I was a different person. And people say don't have regrets. I do have regrets because I feel sorry for the person I was.
Yeah.
But I just wish I had found the strength to... Anyway, I didn't. And as Lincoln says to me, we would never have met.
Yeah.
The timing wasn't right. But in answer to your question, I have obviously become much more... I'm still not a... Sometimes when I'm getting into bed at night, I think, if Caroline could see me
You're
now...
not the first person to say that on this podcast.
She'd absolutely kill me. And I'll be walking along the street and I'll think... Oh my God, if Caroline knew that I hadn't put anything on my face today.
But I wouldn't though. I would only if someone asked me. I don't go up to people and go, why aren't you doing this?
No, I know, but you're mad on SPF and all that. And, it's the good thing about being older and having learnt from you is that I can say to the boys now, and Lincoln's 15 years younger than me, and and I say of all the things that I would redo if I had my time again, it is look after my skin and especially my neck. Which is like my neck, which is like get your turkeys ordered for Christmas.
Mine isn't so much turkeys, it's sun damage down here. I've got such bad sun damage. I'm going to see.
Have you?
Yeah, I'll show you after. Luckily, it's kind of, you don't really see it hit. Look, Liv's like, oh, we'll get that on a T with C. But it's not from recent, it's from when you're a kid. I mean, I grew up in Mississippi. It's 100 degrees a day.
Yeah.
We didn't use SPF. You lived there. You just lived there. You didn't go out and sit out in the sun. And then sunbathing in the 80s.
No, I know. Well, my mother, when I was born in the 50s, in the 60s, my mother would take me to Tynemouth Beach. And, well, it just goes to show that we did used to have some kind of summers there because it was a regular occurrence. And my mum and her friends would lie in a row and they would get the olive oil out.
Yeah.
And they smothered themselves in olive oil.
Lion foil.
And I swear on my life, my mum had a kitchen timer, the old-fashioned kitchen timers with the red thing, and she'd do 30 minutes, then it would go... and they'd all switch over onto the... Honestly, it was like that.
So I know it's not a massive thing for you, but if your bathroom cabinet was on fire, would you save anything?
Am I allowed one or...
Whatever you want, mate.
Okay. I would save my moisturiser, my Skin Rocks moisturiser.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, this is not an ad. Other moisturisers
Not an
are
ad.
available.
Other moisturisers are available.
But I would definitely save my moisturiser. And... I'm trying to think what else would be in the...
What about good lip? You always have a good lip.
Yeah, I'm thinking of getting it done next week because I've suddenly acquired a second outer line thing. So I want to get that blush thing where they tattoo the thing on. I might look totally ridiculous, but anyway, I have to have a poppy lipstick. You're right. Mm-hmm. I can go without any eye makeup, I've used lipstick as blusher. If I have a really poppy lip, like a bright red lip or a bright orange, bung a little bit on your cheeks, and then Bob's your uncle.
A tiny bit on the eyelid.
Absolutely, and that would be me. But now I can't live without the moisturiser.
But we're also northern women in that we always have the mani pedi.
Oh, do you know what I had the other day for the first time in 10 years?
What did you have?
Bikini.
Did you?
Dear God, that's fucking painful,
Why
isn't
did
it?
you get a bikini wax? Just shave it
Because
off. I
know I tried, but then I walked past the mirror the other day and I spotted myself naked and I thought, Jesus Christ, that needs ironing for a start. And then I just glanced down and I thought, no, that's got to come off. So
that's
I had
like a forest.
I had a Hollywood.
Wow.
I had a Hollywood.
You big only Nan's party porn babe.
I know.
Wow.
Can't believe I'm saying that.
That's going in the headline.
Oh my God. There you go.
Oh, just going back to your point, because I don't want to let it go without saying to you that you are one of the most caring people I've met, especially in this industry. And I think you do yourself a big disservice by not showing yourself the same empathy you would have for other people.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
Because, you can't give yourself a hard time. You knew what you did when you did. And also I don't go on about it because I've only known you sober. So to me, you've never been anything else. So we never even talk about it. But it is interesting. Do you think that doing it with Lincoln at the same time helped you both?
Yeah, I think that we actually don't know. We never, ever, ever take our sobriety for granted. We never do. We'll often just be walking down the streets of Soho, which is kind of where we met. And we'll say, oh my God, can you imagine, can you just remember those days when you'd had an all-nighter and everybody else was doing normal things like going to work, and you were pretending to be normal because you had to go to work. And oh God, it frightens me, the anxiety, as they call it now, the horror. And the thing is, giving up alcohol didn't stop my depression. It stopped compounding my depression.
Yeah.
So I would be depressed because of the night I'd had before, and then I would start using cocaine again and using alcohol again to try and combat those feelings. And it was a vicious circle. And I think Lincoln and I's fear of, we had fallen in love, the fact that we are together when everything was against us.
Yeah.
I had just come out of a marriage, and Lincoln was in a bad place with alcohol. He was running Stringfellows. He was living a very nocturnal life. Now he's an international, incredible artist, as you know.
Amazing.
Just had an amazing Biennale in Venice, and he's, you know, he's wonderful and something. And my gut told me that he would find his passion and he would be successful at it. I still to this day don't know what that was, but it did. And we realized that the one thing that was going to break us up was that we didn't like each other when we were drunk. Yeah. And I gave him an ultimatum, and he stopped that day. And 2 months later, because I didn't think I was as bad, something happened, and I stopped. And people have said that we are in the 3% of the world of people who, without going to AA or anything, and that's not that I have huge admiration for that association, and huge admiration for those people who use it. It's just that what you need is, you need an anchor.
You need what works for you.
Lincoln and I are each other's anchor, and luckily that's worked for us. And it is the thing, apart from my children, that I am the most proud of.
And he looks at you, I don't know if you see it, but I see it. When we first met and he popped in and he looked at me and he was definitely checking me out in the way of like making sure I was a good influence and not, you know, someone dodgy, not someone trying to...
He can't hide anything on his face,
can
he? He
and
really
also,
can't.
I've got like, you know, 3 sons, Jim. I'm used to reading men. And I did not mean he was checking me out. I meant he was literally like, nice to meet you. But it wasn't like it wasn't immediately like a puppy friendly, like, hi.
Yeah.
And then at your ball, he doesn't take his eyes off you. He's always watching, just making sure you're okay.
Yeah, he's definitely a keeper.
Oh, he's definitely a keeper.
And he does do that, because I've said, you know, before, you really suss people. He said he's very right. We yin and yang each other. I trust everybody until they
give you a reason.
Until they give me reason not to. Lincoln trusts nobody until they gain his trust.
That's
it's
Jim.
just the way.
It's
yeah,
Jim. It's
the way that we work.
Jim, I'll be like, this person's lovely, meet them, and he'll look at them like they've just stabbed his cat.
Yeah, I know, that's what Lincoln does.
Like,
Lincoln is like
so rude.
Lincoln is like having a Rottweiler, you know, out with you. I know, which is great for if I'm being sort of hassled or something.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You have to be like,
but sometimes
it's okay.
it's like when we'll be sort of at a televised award ceremony or something, and the jib, you know, the camera comes round, and I go, "Can you smile, darling? You look like a psycho serial killer."
And he's like that.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay, whatever.
Thinking, oh my God.
You've done everything in terms of stage, telly, books. We haven't even touched on your books. What's next? Are you going to actually become the nana that semi-retires?
Do you know, I am a nana.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank you. So my stepson Lewis and his wife Lizzie have given us Theo, and we are absolutely, totally and
Isn't
utterly...
the obsession weird?
It is.
The obsession is
I am
otherworldly.
obsessed.
People think I'm nuts. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's...
Lincoln, when Theo is in his arms... It's like a different thing has come over him.
Yep.
And also, because he had Lewis when he was 19, they had no money, they didn't have a pot to piss in, nothing worked out with the marriage. It was a really, really hard, shitty, nasty time for him. Now, he's going to spoil this child. I mean, dear God, you know... I'm sort of hoping for a granddaughter along the line, but dear God, having him as a granddad, they're never going to be allowed to do anything. But it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I love working, Caroline. I love working, but I also love not working. So I'm no longer defined by what am I doing next.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of holidays planned this year.
I love you. You're my holiday queen.
We work
I live
very
vicariously
hard,
through you.
and we both have decided that when we can, you know, we're going to go on holiday. We've got kids. You know, the kids are all over the place.
They're all over the gaff.
All over the gaff, and so I just want to. I want to enjoy myself. I would have been terrified a few years ago saying to my agent, I've got 2 weeks then, I've got 2 weeks then, I've got 2 weeks then I'm out. Because I would have been terrified that something would come in. Now it would have to be something
like The Gap.
really,
Something really
amazing
good.
or some big money job for me not to go.
To take you away from the family and from the baby.
Yeah.
I totally get it. We've got the two, as you know, and when last Christmas, like November time, Ben tried to say to me, imagine, bless his heart, he tried. He went, Mum, like last year was a bit over the top. And he was trying to go like, he went, I just want, I don't want you to spoil and rotten. Like it's too much. There's too much stuff. There's no need in it. Can you just like wind it in a bit?
Pull it back, yeah.
And I just went, son, Liv's laughing because she knows. I'm like, son, we do everything you ask. I don't feed them the illegal sweets. They go to bed on time. I use whatever nappies you say. You will not dictate how much money I spend on my grandchildren.
Yes.
And he went, what's the fucking point? I went, what is the point? I went, you will be lucky. And Jim's in the other room going, why are you wasting your breath, son?
I know.
I went, you will be lucky if you don't come into that room on Christmas Day and there's not a fucking pony attached to that tree.
Oh my God, you are exactly the same as Lincoln. And he was doing some the other day and I said, darling, he's just turned 1. He said, yeah, but I couldn't get that for Lewis. And I go, I know that, but he's 1, he won't understand it.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, it's going to be a nightmare.
He knows. But it's the best kind of nightmare.
It is. And we are, as I say, he has just brought us so much joy. So I'm going to be, if Matt's still in LA and if eventually he has one, I'm going to just be like transatlantic Nana.
You're going to be transatlantic Nana.
Transatlantic Nana.
You could make a fortune. You could put pictures of your feet up on the airplane swollen and put it on Only Nans.
On Only Nans on the feet thing because that's what we're going to do.
They love a bit of feet on Only Nans.
My
when
God.
we're skint,
They
bit
love
of Only Nans.
Listen, it's my fallback because honestly, mature women is the most Googled form of pornography.
Oh, mate,
and
we've arrived.
If I can get my feet out for the lads, bunions and all,
yeah.
Quids in,
Only Nans.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I love you so much. You are an absolute, you're a legend, but to your mates.
Will you come on my Only Nans podcast?
Anytime you like.
Good.
I've got good
Okay.
feet, to be fair. We could make a fortune.
You'll have to audition.
We can make a killing and then go on holiday.
Can you spread your toes?
Yeah.
Oh, I
can pick things up with my toes.
Can you?
Yeah.
Wow.
If I drop something, I've got a handful of things I can just pick up with my foot. That's my
okay.
whole other income stream there.
You've definitely got your own page.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Coming.
Thank you.